Can anyone hear me?
Yeah. Good evening. I'm calling to order the September 12th, 2023 Fountain City Council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Thompson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Estes.
Here.
Councilmember Hinton.
Here.
Councilmember Corey. Councilmember Rick.
Here.
Councilmember Applegate.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan. We have 5 members present, and Councilmember Corey and Councilmember Duncan notified staff of their absence.
All right, thank you very much. That takes us to presentations. We have 2 presentations tonight. We have a D8 safety interview, and we have Dr. Romero here for D8. Welcome.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Thompson, City Council members. The district really appreciates the opportunity to come here tonight and present to you on where the district's at with school safety. It's important that you know how important your support is. We know that our school safety practices have improved because of the dedication you've made to school safety as well. So wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to see where your support is going and answer any questions. Lieutenant Mallett's here, who is our SRO lieutenant that oversees our SRO unit in Fountain, and also Dr. Krumholtz, who's the principal at Fountain Fort Carson High School, in case there's questions specific at the end. We'll talk a little bit about where we're going with vaping, because I know that was a question that came up earlier from the council. So we always lead with an mission. One of the things that the district has done over the last 8 years is focus on a universal approach to school safety. So looking at facilities, looking at law enforcement, and then also looking at human behavior and what are those things that really are guiding our kids and our families to make sure that we're identifying how to support and be preventative. And all 3 of those things, the goal is to be preventative. We get evaluation from 3 different areas every single year. We get feedback from our student staff and family surveys. We do a facility evaluation with our SROs, with the building administrator, and with our facilities department. And then we're seeking information from our law enforcement partners, both here in Fountain and on Fort Carson each year. Real quickly, survey results. Pretty consistent. It's very interesting to me that students are the lowest reported of feeling safe at school, which lets us know we need to make sure we're communicating with our students and recognizing what are the things that make them feel unsafe at school. When I do my safety walks at the end of every year, I interview students at every single school. What I hear the most are the unstructured settings. So outside at recess, cafeteria, where there's not a teacher directly instructing is where they feel the most unsafe because of those unstructured times. So we'll continue to work on making sure we identify safe places for them in those times. You can see where staff and families are pretty consistent with whether we address safety in a timely manner and if they believe that their building is safe where their student goes to school. During the safety walk, these are the things that we look at. We meet with principals. As I mentioned, we interview students. We also interview staff. We check every door in the building, so both internal and external doors. Happy to report that this year's walkthrough, we didn't have one external door that was opened across the district. So that's a big step forward. 8 years ago, I bet 50% were either unlocked or propped. where anybody could walk in. And so for it to be 100% 8 years later, that's a good progress. Inside, one of our expectations is if you have to use a key to lock the door, then that door needs to remain locked all the time. The district is moving to making sure all of the handles have an internal push button lock, so you don't need a key to lock the door. Teachers, administrators, they open doors for convenience. So we all know that if there's an emergency situation, to get a key in a door and go outside in the hallway is not a realistic thing to do. So keeping those doors locked that is expected, but it's hard when it's convenient to walk in and out and you have to interrupt instruction to unlock a door, but we're working on making sure we have push button locks from the inside in all of our buildings. The high school is almost 100%. We should be 100% there by the end of the year, and Fountain Middle School is what we installed those doors when we built it, so that school is already 100%. We do give feedback to administrators to make sure that they understand what we saw during the walkthrough and suggest plans for the following year. And then we look at safety improvements that are approved by our board that happen every year. We're allotted a certain amount of money to do safety improvements across the district. One of our most proud partnerships is our School Resource Officer Program. We have, thanks to your support, we have officers assigned to all of our K-12 schools. So all of our elementary schools in Fountain have one officer, as well as on Fort Carson. Our middle school here in Fountain, because it's over 1,000 kids, has 2 officers, and then our high school has 3 officers because it's close to 2,000 students. And that's just a great support. We couldn't do it without your leadership and your willingness to support school safety. It does take all of them. I know it seems like a lot, and I think initially they even wondered, will I have enough to do? I think if you ask any of them, they will say they have plenty to do. Right, Lieutenant Mallett? We were just talking about all she had to do. Currently, we have SROs provided from the Fountain Police Department and the Directorate of Emergency Services. That's tough on Fort Carson. It's not as consistent. We rotate officers a lot. And what we know is that without that consistency to build communication in a partnership where there's trust, it doesn't work as effectively. So we are looking to have the Fountain Police Department support our schools on Fort Carson. It's going to be a little bit longer process than I would hope for, but we're going to stay consistent in making sure that we provide all of our schools that are associated with Fountain Fort Carson School District the same opportunity to have that preventative support from law enforcement. The other thing I'd like to mention, your department here monitors all the safe to tells 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and there's constant communication between a district level administrator, the Fountain Police Department through our SROs typically. Usually it's Lieutenant Mallett or Sergeant Sanchez that available all the time, and we make sure we are intervening with students. Just last weekend, we had 2 students on a Saturday evening and late into the morning on Sunday that needed support, and we can get that support quickly when we know there's an issue. So know that the department here is fully engaged on the weekends, after hours. It's not just a school hour job for them either. Here's what some of our basic things that we expect all of our schools to do. Like I said, the secured front entry at all schools with no other external doors open. We've been able to accomplish that. Badges are required for all staff and students grades 6 through 12. So the high school's been really diligent this year to make sure the students also are carrying badges, because we want to make sure that students that are supposed to be there are there. Last year we did have a couple instances where we had students that were from Widefield or from a different school district that wanted to come have lunch with a friend. Maybe it was a day off for them. We want to make sure that we're identifying that every person in that building should be in there, which is why we require badges of all staff and students. Radios are carried by all administrators for that seamless communication. They're also carried by the SRO, so the SRO has double responsibility. They have their police radio and they have a district radio. When a school gets on emergency and says, Aragon moving to command, all of the SROs also move to command, and they can hear what's happening so that if we need a quick response, it's simultaneous, that we're not making a bunch of phone calls, we're not trying to get a hold of people on cell phones and having to make multiple calls. Everybody can hear the same information at once. If we have police activity in the area, all of our administrators can hear that at once to make sure we secure the building. So the radios have been an important communication option for the district. And then I mentioned earlier the anonymous reporting options, which allows us to intervene on the weekends, at nights, when students students are either communicating with each other. Gaggle and Lightspeed are technology tools, so if they're sending an email to each other about, I really want to harm myself tonight, we're going to get that as a district, and we're going to be able to work with the law enforcement to get support to that student immediately. Talks just briefly about how we respond to threats. As I said, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We work with both the Fountain PD and also the Fort Carson Military Police. If it is a threat against a school, we will start working in the moment. The Fountain PD has been great to go to houses to make sure that the parent understands that a threat's been made. We can intervene before school even happens the next day, and then we can identify how do we need to communicate with our community. Is this something that has risen to a level of a valid threat and we need to communicate immediately? Is it something we need to investigate further? Or is it something that has been the media can instigate those calls that are not valid, and then we need to inform our community that it hasn't been a valid threat. So there's a lot that goes on with the threat, the threats that come in, but it's great that we have a partnership that we can feel secure after hours that somebody's communicating with that student and knows whether we're safe to go to school the next day. This is just some of the data we collect every year. You can see that we had over almost 16,000 visitors that came to the schools, and years ago we didn't have any way to track them. They would just come into the building, say hi, check into the office, and then wander around the school. Now we have a process where they sign in. We need to know where they're going. That's a lot of people throughout a school year. I was a little bit surprised at that number. Gaggle is the technology tool. You can see where they reviewed almost 22,000 safety emails that brought up a safety concern last year that we were able to intervene with. The Safe to Tell data, I only gave you the most significant areas, so don't try to add up those columns because they don't equal the numbers at the bottom. But the total is how many Safe to Tells we received at K-5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. And I just wanted to give you the ones that were the most significant, that we respond more immediately to, and we make sure that we're supporting students. You can definitely see where self-harm and suicide at the secondary levels, particularly our middle schools, where that becomes a concern. Any questions about the data?
I probably am not the only person in the room or online that isn't getting the Gaggle thing. How does it see the students' emails and I mean, because there's so many different platforms for emails out there.
Sure. So if it's associated with their school account, and because of all of our students have the school computers, then it's able to, if they're logged in, once they log into their computer, they're logged as a student. So if they're using their school computer, if they're using a phone and they're using an email not associated with the school, we wouldn't see those.
That makes sense
If
now.
it's
Thank
personal,
you.
no, but if it's a school account, then we would.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So here's some of the projects that we've either are working on or that we've completed. I know Patriot Elementary is on Fort Carson, but it was a big deal for their classrooms to get doors, so that was a good thing. Our goal is that every classroom that enters an open hallway has a door. Years ago, you built schools that had the free-flowing classrooms. It's just not effective anymore in this day and age. So every classroom at Patriot has doors, and we're working to make sure that every pod, so if you have been to Eagleside, if you've been to Mesa, there's pods where you have classrooms, and they might have an open classroom, but the pod has a pod door that can lock. So our next goal is to make sure that we have swipe cards or hold opens on all those pod doors, so you don't have to lock those with a key either. They would automatically shut if a panic button was pushed. We did increase the vestibule at the high school. That was a major need. If you'd been to the small vestibule, you could maybe fit, I don't know, safely, maybe 5 people in there. You probably stuffed 10 to 15 people in there at times, and literally it was stuffing them in there because it was a very small space. So that's a much larger vestibule now where we can really see who's in the building and make sure that they're not sneaking in one of those doors, because you were so close to any door. Once it was opened, you could have easily gotten in. And then we also looked at intercom improvements, and then we worked at separating our traffic so that we really were having students play a game of Frogger every morning, where they were having to cross, all of our students that parked would have to cross moving traffic to get into the school, and that was a big safety project for the district. We are, in terms of vaping, we're starting with a pilot project at Welty, where halo sensors are going to be installed this fall. That senses vaping that's happening in the bathroom. That's one of the most popular places to vape. And so we're going to pilot it at Welty to see how that works and how we are able to identify students and provide support. Our goal is to intervene to provide support. It isn't to suspend or punish. We really need to make sure that we're providing education to students around the effects of vaping. We've also added additional cameras. I talked about the classroom doors to be a push button, and then the secured pod entries. So we will continue to make sure that we're focusing on our facility, but I want to emphasize that, facility safety only goes so far. You have to have that human behavior understanding and partnering that with your law enforcement being proactive to really have a comprehensive overview of school safety. So next steps, ensuring that the SRO program at all schools is really integrated into the schools. I have zero concern about the schools in Fountain. Fort Carson, we have a ways to go to make sure that we have that proactive approach. Wanted to make sure that the City Council had the information on the grant funds that we've received and that we're using to support vaping. And I know Dr. Krumholtz is here, that he can speak more specifically if you have questions. But we have several programs where we're integrating how to support the education of the harmful effects of vaping. The Students Working Against Tobacco is something that the high school is implementing that will help bring students together to help educate other students. We know that students listen to students more than students listen to adults at that level. So that's one of the things that the high school is working on, and it is student-led. Sources of Strength, are any of you familiar with Sources of Strength? This was a program we really started around suicide awareness and providing students with the skills to move through those difficult parts of their high school career. We know that high school, middle school, those are hard times. And so Sources of Strength is at our middle school and our high schools, and it's an area that we can use the students that are educated to support that program to also provide prevention strategies with vaping. Incorporating that education into the health and science classes. We're partnering with Children's Hospital, so we have 2 therapists that come from Children's Hospital that are working specifically with students that we have concerns or that have demonstrated using vaping, so that we can provide education that is separate from their school administrators or school counselors, maybe an outside person. Sometimes we see when they come in, they're a little bit more receptive. It's not somebody they see every day. So Children's Hospital's been great to partner with on that therapeutic support. And then looking at, instead of only what's the infraction, what's going to be the discipline part of vaping, what are those evidence-based programs that we can support the understanding so that we hopefully decrease the use of vaping, not only in our schools, but also in our community with our most prized possessions, our children. So I want to bring Lieutenant Mallet up. This is one of my favorite pictures. Get a picture from the SROs every year, and we couldn't be more thankful for this group of men and women. They are dedicated. They are willing to learn. They are willing to provide feedback, and just couldn't ask for better partners in this mission of keeping our students safe. And just want to thank you for agreeing to that partnership and this continued partnership, because we couldn't do it without our SROs. And I know our community, our teachers, our families, our students feel safer at school because of this partnership and the willingness to support it at a level that allows us to be preventative and not just reactive. So thank you.
Does anybody have any questions before she goes on? Okay. I was curious, I didn't say communities that care on your list of programs you're working with. Are you working with them at all?
So we do work with them. They don't have specific programs separate from El Paso County. So that's part of when you go back to these resources, Students Working Against Tobacco, the Sources of Strength, they're incorporated in all of those. So they are one of our partners, but it's just incorporated with all of the other. They do similar things, but yes, we attend those meetings. We get resources from them.
Okay.
More connected to the resources from El Paso County Health through them. Yeah.
Okay. And then I want to make sure that Councilmember Rick online doesn't have any questions before we go on.
I'm good, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I'll turn it
Thank
over to
you.
Lieutenant Mallett.
I just want to add, we're very thankful for this partnership. I've been in and out of the district since 2009. I've seen a lot of change. When I was there, I was the only one by myself for 5 years. I have people in the community that their kids were in the buildings when I was SRO then, and now their grandkids are coming through, and, the comment is, yes, Mallett, I'm still there. I'm still there. But we're very thankful for you guys for your support, because without that partnership, we wouldn't be able to provide the service we do to these districts. And we are looking forward to getting that contract on Carson. I know that my schools on Fort Carson, our District 8 schools, they're very, very jealous of the schools in town on how they get those relationships with their SROs. They get that community sense. Our SROs are with them all the time. So I think next council member, you guys will be working on our new MOU for us to continue to grow and expand our unit. So thank you.
Tara,
Yes.
I brag about you guys and our SRO program with the school district.
You should.
Literally up and down the state. And if I'm at the Capitol or at a regional meeting for anything, people are like so jealous of us and pretty unbelievable the way it's worked out. So can you just explain a little bit more? Because I think your relationship is more with the kids than just security. And I think that is one of the things that's really making this program be successful.
It is. So because we're kind of used to having SROs, our community gets used to having SROs, especially if they're in-town kids, right? Our Carson kids, they might have transferred from a different base. They're not used to having an SRO in the building. They might not be used to that contact. Because of the people that I have in our unit that go out of their way to just be that resource, we high five, we give them suckers, we build those relationships so that when that crisis hits, they absolutely know that the SRO is also a very safe reporting party for them. We have kids come to us all the time for anything, crazy stuff, like they had a bad day at home, they need to talk about it. So just seeing that circle of how much our SROs are integrated into the school families. I can't go anywhere in town without somebody asking me if I know one of the SROs. Do you? Of course I do, right? So without us being here, and we spend so much time in the buildings. We go to sporting events. We go to all the after-school events at the elementary and middle school levels. So those kids don't only see us at maybe during the day during the security stuff. They see that support, and then it gives us that buy-in to say, hey, I saw you at the game, man. Way to put up 10 points. Good job. I saw your defense. You were really kicking it. Those kids love that. They love that we're at all of their events. We go to band stuff. We go to plays. We do all that. And so without those relationships, it just doesn't grow into that partnership. And I think everybody's jealous. I know CSPD is, because we have almost as many as they do in their whole city.
Yeah.
So when they hear what we're doing down here, there's a lot of jealousy, and I love that.
Yeah.
I would also just add, we also don't include SROs in discipline unless we absolutely have to. So we try to keep them separate so that it's not seen that if we do need to have discipline, that it's always something that the SRO is a part of, because we don't want them associated with all the negative interactions that a student might have, so they are seen as a resource. I think that's an important.
That's good to know. Yeah. Councilmember Applegate?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank both of you for what you're doing. It's a crazy world we live in, and it seems like you both really have a handle on how to do this and take care of our kids. And I'm impressed. It's too bad we have that 8% that won't turn in their friends.
Yeah, we'll
But
get there.
the word will get out. There's too many kids. So that's good. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hinton?
Yes, I too also want to thank both of you for your efforts and all that you do. I'm extremely impressed and proud of our city when it comes to our SROs. Everywhere that I go and in different schools that I'm in, they struggle with this, right? They struggle with the lack of resource and having officers in their school. And so, Chief, and to the school administration, thank you for all you do, and especially thanks to our citizens for allowing us to be able to serve your youth, your children, and protect them to the best of our abilities as possible. So thank you.
Councilmember Estes?
I'm going to join on. With the mayor, every time I talk about you guys, I am so proud of everything you do in the district supporting this. I'm a K through 12 fountain person. Go Trojans.
Go Trojans.
So it just makes me proud that I went to school there and to see this still going and that we're keeping our kids safe and our community safe. And so I'm just so proud of you guys. So wonderful, go, keep it going. So, and go Trojans, win those football games.
One last question, and then we'll go see if Councilmember Rick has anything. Safe to tell, is that only an internal thing? Or if somebody who didn't have a kid in the community or whatever, how would they know to report to that?
So Safe to Tell is kind of statewide.
Okay.
Most schools, districts know about it. We do end up having some parents that use it because they heard about it in some way. Those are a little frustrating because just call the cops. Like, if your neighbor's doing whatever, don't put a Safe to Tell out, just call the cops. But sometimes you get, if you have a complaint with the school, just call the school. But, because it's designed for that safety piece for the kids to be able to get that help for a friend that might be suicidal or a friend that's getting abused at home without them feeling like they're tattling or telling the dirty
Because it's
deeds.
completely anonymous.
Well, that's what, because if they call the police department, it's not going to be anonymous.
Yeah,
So if somebody
right.
wants to remain anonymous, they are going to have to use that.
I think
They
adults
just have to
don't
put enough on there to make sure we know how to connect with the student that's in crisis. So the more information you can put, the quicker we can respond and get the information to get the resources to the individual that needs it.
Yeah.
So like is it safetotel.com if you're not internal, or what is it?
Yeah, and it's a 1-800
Yeah,
number.
it's safe to,
Oh, okay.
And it's on their IDs. So all the
Right,
kids,
but
when they
I
get their
don't have a
school.
kid, like, I don't have a
but
kid
yes,
in the school, right?
safehotel.com, and you would link to either an online reporting option or an 800 number.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, great. Councilmember Rick?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank Dr. Romero and Lieutenant Mallett for all of their hard work, not only for the students, but working together. And for Lieutenant Mallett, same question as last year. Is there anything else you need to keep the students in Fountain safe? Please let us.
Will do. We do use the bikes often. They're a great resource to get around that campus because as you know, it's growing out there. So we're on those bikes quite a bit. They're super fun. I mean, they're fun. And the kids like to see us zipping around. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
great, thank you so much. All righty, and our Creek Week presentation that's on the agenda has been postponed until later. That takes us to item 4.2, Board Commissions and Committees. We have no one to appoint tonight. That takes us to item 5, Correspondence, Comments, and Ex Officio Reports. Mr. Trainer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple quick items for the council. We have the CML District 4 annual meeting coming up on September 27th. And so I would just encourage you, I know you all have different contacts within some of the different municipal organizations around the area. And so I'd encourage you, if you could, to reach out to your colleagues at these other cities and encourage them to sign up for that. We're just trying to get the registrations in as soon as possible so we can get everything ordered and taken care of for that. So that again is on September 27th, if you could encourage your colleagues to sign up for that. The other thing coming up here is Community Night in the Park. That's on the 19th. That'll be a fun event, as always. We're going to be setting up all afternoon. Generally, folks start showing up there around 5 o'clock. And kids have a great time. We have some bounce houses. Todd's doing face painting. Actually, we do have face painting. Todd's not doing it.
I thought you
It'll
meant
be
he
a
was
fun
gonna get
event for
his
kids.
face
Yeah,
painted.
yeah.
Yeah, which design is Todd picking to get his face painted? is what I thought you
No,
meant, yeah.
no. No, but it'll be a fun event and just hopefully get a number of people there. Be a
Great.
good turnout.
All right, kids can climb on the equipment and stuff, and we have activities for them, and a lot of nonprofits in the area come out for that night, so information about what they're doing within the city of Fountain, so lots of things to All right, Mr. Evans.
Two very good updates tonight. We got word today from CDOT that the Green T intersection project at Carson and 85-87 will begin June of next year, finishing February of 2025. So that's great news for all those folks down on Alegre that really suffer getting in and out of that community with Southmore still closed. So that was good news. And again, that entire project is going to be paid for by a CDOT grant. So we don't have any financials in that project. Also received a call just before council from King Supers, letting us know that they did close on the property with Evergreen Development for the King Superstore. So that's 12 acres that Kroger now owns, excuse me. And they plan on at least getting dirt work started over there in the next couple of months. So that's another very positive news. I've kept my fingers crossed as I've seen all the merger articles that everyone else has seen. So I'm holding my breath until we get sticks in the ground for the store, because you never know. But that's a good first step for us that they're closed and ready to go. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson. Chief Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick word about yesterday's stair climb. Thank you, Mayor, for your support, and city staff, Mr. Trainer, all the staff that came out and supported it. It was a very good event to benefit the Becerra family, but also in remembrance of 9/11. Other than that, one quick note on our ISO inspection that I keep talking to you about. Got a call from the inspector. He'll be here next Tuesday, tentatively. So that'll be our in-person, and then after that, in my experience, it takes 5 to 6 months to get those results. So I'll keep you posted on that.
Chief Christiani.
Thank you, Mayor. Just back from vacation, so I have nothing to report.
Did you have a good vacation?
I did. I went to Montana.
All right. Mr. Trilch.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Ms. Bailey.
Ditto, nothing to report, Mayor.
Mr. Lewis.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
If you got anything to report, raise your hand. All right, Sylvia.
I just want to make a public announcement into City Council that pro-con statements for the upcoming ballot issue are due on September 22nd to be submitted to the county. And that's all I have.
And they turn them into you?
They do turn them into me.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Pro-con statements.
Pro-con for the Blue Book for the election? Right, okay. All righty, I will start to my left with Mr. Hinton.
I don't have anything for the group, Madam Mayor.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Estes.
Just a happy birthday to the United States Constitution. We'll be celebrating its 236th birthday on September 17th. So that's awesome, and we all should enjoy that day, our Constitution Day. And an interesting tidbit about that is the 27th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified in 1992. It took 203 years to ratify that amendment because it was included in the first 12 that were proposed for the Bill of Rights, but it didn't pass. It's the amendment that says we can't get a pay raise if you're a representative or a senator unless there's an election in between for the state, for the representatives. So it took 203 years for that to pass. So that's kind of your interesting tidbit for this week.
But when they wanted a pay raise, they managed to get it passed.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Councilmember Applegate?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I hope everybody got a little chance to celebrate the 9/11 and everything that took place at that time, and to just understand what happened and grieve for the people that were there and for the country and what we did. That's all.
All right, thank you. And yeah, I went to the 9/11 event, and I'd like to thank, I think Mr. Skeldon, firefighter Skeldon, had quite a bit to getting that together, and I can really see that event grow. And it's kind of cool to stand out in the middle of Weidner Field, right? When else are we going to get to do that? But it was a very cool event. They had badges if you participated that you got of a fallen firefighter from the 9/11. And Mr. Trainer was telling me you can actually look their names up online and find out information about them. So that was really special. So thank you, everybody, for doing that. And I think the great lesson from 9/11 is our country pulls together when something horrendous happens, and I think we need to apply that lesson to every day and just be pulling together for our community and our neighbors and the people that we love and the people we don't even know. So I think that's the great takeaway from 9/11. And maybe people get a little bit more patience when they remember that, because we seem to be kind of impatient right now. So, all right, that takes us on to, Gord, thank you. And I even wrote it up here in big letters. Mr. Rick, do you have anything tonight?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'd like to apologize for everybody for not being there in person. I had surgery on my knees, and I am under doctor's orders to keep my knees elevated above my heart, so I cannot be there. I would like to make a statement. I wrote it, and it represents my thoughts and no one else's. 10 years ago here in Fountain, voters were deciding whether to ban smart meters or not. It started out as a difference of opinion, with people on both sides presenting facts for or against. But some people at that time engaged in misinformation. They stated facts that were not true. This year, people are deciding whether the city should join PPRTA or not. And again, people on both sides are sharing their opinions. Unfortunately, we are starting to see some misinformation start to appear. What I would ask everyone to do is ask questions when you hear or read something for or against. Is this your opinion or is it a fact? It's a fact. Where did you get your information from? Can I see or talk to this source? It doesn't matter if it's me or a friend you've known for 20 years. Question them. As Ronald Reagan once said, trust but verify. Once you're sure of your facts, then make an informed decision and vote your conscience. No matter what you believe, please vote, because every vote counts.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rick. All righty, that takes us on to item 6, public to be heard. Sylvia, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay. Citizens may address the council on items that are not on the agenda. Council may not be able to provide an immediate answer, but will direct staff to follow up. Out of respect for the council and others in attendance, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. I do have 2 cards. I'll go with these 2 first, so if anybody hasn't filled out a card, you've got time to hop up back there. And these are only for things that are not on the agenda. And so I do have one from John Langley from the American Legion.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, honored council. My name's John Langley with the American Legion. Just wanted to let you know a couple of things that we've been doing in the past, here the last week or two, and what we got coming up in the near future. This last Saturday, the Legion with the VFW, with the help of Mr. Evans, was able to get Waste Connections to donate a 30-foot rollaway. We went over to a disabled Vietnam veteran and filled that up with limbs and trash out of his yard. And so thank you, Mr. Evans, on getting that done with that. All right, so next Friday, we have a steak dinner, and the following Friday on the 22nd, we have a fish fry coming up. Our auxiliary is hosting a craft fair on October the 14th, and November the 11th at 11:11, the Legion with the VFW and with the help of Councilman Rick are going to have a Veterans Day ceremony at the American Legion. Councilman Rick, if you're listening to us, we still need that keynote speaker. Thank you very much.
Oh, he did inform me, I'm going to speak for him, in case it's sometimes hard to get him. He did say the person from Space Force had confirmed. I don't know the name. You'll have to get in contact with him for the name.
Okay,
So,
thank
but
you.
you do have a speaker. And of course, they always give you the caveat of unless something really important comes up, because we're the military.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all righty. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you so much for taking the time to help that veteran out with this stuff in their yard, because that's so important, and thank you so much to everybody who helped with that.
Well, it was a group effort, and we also had soldiers from from Fort Carson that came and helped us out. So we had about 18 people there for about 2
Oh, that's
hours
great.
working, so.
It's amazing how much work those young guys can get done, huh? And what time is your event on the 11th?
It's at 11:11.
11, at your place this year, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Great, thank you.
I have one question for you.
Okay, Councilmember Estes?
What was the dinner on the 22nd? What one was that?
That was the fish.
The fish fry, okay.
I didn't even bother to write that one down. I didn't even bother to write that one down. I'm not a fish person.
The steak fry is on the 15th, the fish fry is on the 22nd.
Fantastic, thank you.
You can have my fish. Okay, all righty. We have Aaron Himes from VFW.
Evening, Madam Mayor, honored council members. Same thing as my lovely Legion counterpart. Want to go over what we've done over the last couple weeks. Want to highlight that on Labor Day, although it was an alternate event, we were able to raise $912 down at the VFW with the help of Sports Clips, providing free haircuts for members of the community, and we were able to donate that to Mission 22, which helps fight veteran suicide. Something that's very close to our hearts. We did lose one of our members to suicide here about 10 days ago, and we are having his funeral this Sunday, September 17th at 2 o'clock. Just want to let everybody know that you may see a large procession of motorcyclists because there will be a large motorcycle escort through town out to Quail Lake and then back starting at 12 noon. And then we also have on the 23rd, we partnered with Peaks and Pines and the O'Brien home team, and we're going to do a chili cook-off over at Peaks and Pines. You'll see it advertised across the city billboards right now. All proceeds from that and the raffle will go to the VFW, and we've allocated those funds to our relief fund. One thing that we're getting from Mount Carmel is a huge number of referrals right now for veterans that need help with temporary lodging, et cetera. So we're going to take that money and actually allocate it towards that so that we can help kind of bridge that gap before Mount Carmel can get them into that long-term housing situation. Upcoming things you're going to see around town, advertisements for our Thanksgiving gift baskets. Sports Clips is one of our national sponsors. So at every Sports Clip location in Fountain, both the one on the Mesa and up on Venatucci, you'll see boxes for donations of canned goods. Anything that gets donated will be immediately given out to 25 families on Fort Carson, 25 families on the Peterson base complex, and then we're also going to donate boxes to 25 members of our community. So if anybody knows of anybody that needs a meal on Thanksgiving, please get with us and we'll make sure that they get one. And then the last thing I have is I'm going to take just kind of a target of opportunity because I have District 8 here. On October 31st is the cutoff for our scholarships and Teacher of the Year awards this year. So 9th to 12th graders are eligible for a $35,000 scholarship if they win at the national level. 6th to 8th graders are eligible for a $5,000 scholarship. And then Teacher of the Year is awarded $1,000 for their classroom and $1,000 to the teacher. And all those have been passed out to the schools. It's a complete online process to submit it, and then we grade it and submit it up to the department headquarters here in Colorado for final judging. Any of your questions?
That information is on your website for the scholarships?
The information is on the website. It's also been posted, cross-posted on multiple Fountain 411 pages, et cetera.
And it's not just public school students, homeschool students?
Homeschool students,
private school
we're working
students?
with Goal Academy, we're working with whole homeschool, we're working with everybody that can access it.
Okay, Valley, I can't remember what she calls her school now, Valley Christian Academy, the one at Restoration Church, they just started a homeschool, middle school homeschool program, so you might reach out to them and make sure that their kids know about it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, okay. And I saw Dr. Romero's ears, through your hair, I saw them go up.
We did announce it to our administrators today.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate everything. There's a lot going on. I'm going to put one of the PD on spot. What is the 888 number for suicide prevention? Because, we're just hearing more and more of it, and I've heard it's on the rise again. So does anybody, maybe you can Google it real quick or something, but if we could find that number out and make sure that we are getting that out there, that would be great, because we need everybody here tomorrow. What's that? Todd gave me a funny look. Okay. All righty. Okay, that takes us on to our consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be approved with one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item may be removed from consent agenda and considered separately at the discretion of council. We have no consent agenda. Item number 8, old business. Item A, discussion on the history of annexation of enclaves within the city limits. Ms. Martinez, and this was at the request of Councilmember Applegate. Okay, hang on just one second. We got the number.
988.
988?
988.
That's all they dial? That's all they dial. 988. Okay, you don't have to have anything else. 988. Okay, thank you. Oh, I even got it up there. Thank you. All right. I thought there was, for some reason,
Good evening, Christy Martinez with the City of Fountain Planning Department. As the mayor had mentioned, this was a request at a previous council meeting by Councilmember Richard Applegate to bring back just a history and a brief discussion on the city-initiated annexation of enclaves that we had commenced about 10 to 12 years ago. The process actually started back in 2005 when the city adopted the Comprehensive Development Plan. Part of the Comprehensive Development Plan included the city's 3-mile plan, which is a statutory requirement that all municipalities must have a, quote, plan in place, unquote, in place prior to commencing any annexations within that given year. Within that 2005 comprehensive plan, the discussion started with City Council at that time to go a step further and formally adopt an annexation plan for the City of Fountain. That process started in December of 2005 by initiating several public discussions, and that went on through the fall of 2006 with Planning Commission, and then a step further in October of 2007 with an informal discussion before City Council at that time with a formal adoption of the city's annexation plan in November of 2007. The purpose of an annexation plan is really to meet the statutory requirements of not only having the 3-mile plan in place, but also to provide a guide to analyze annexation requests, to provide the legislative authority in which the city may annex properties. But our specific annexation plan goes a step further to also provide policies on annexation, but it went into a little bit more detail in terms of annexation of enclaves, areas of municipal-owned land that are outside of our city limits, and areas of special consideration. There were 2 areas of special consideration within that annexation plan, which was the Corvallis development at the intersection of Mark Shuffle and Fontaine, and then PPIR, because they are really disconnected from the city Fountain boundaries as a whole. There are 4 types of annexations, as I mentioned. One of them is the voluntary annexations, which is where the property owner approaches the city by submitting an annexation petition, and that goes through the statutory process and public hearing process before City Council, where a minimum of 16.6% of their property boundary must be contiguous with existing city limits. The second type of annexation is an enclave annexation, which is the property is part of unincorporated El Paso County, but is 100% fully surrounded by properties that have already been annexed into the city. In the city's annexation plan, there were 124 parcels that made up 16 enclaves. They were then prioritized into a priority 1 and a priority 2. Priority 1 were to meet the immediate needs. They were within our urban services boundary. And then priority 2 was not to have an immediate need because they were generally on the fringe or outside of our urban services boundaries. The third one is the annexation of city-owned land outside of our city limits. So if we owned a parcel that was 4 or 5 miles outside of our city limits, there are procedures in place through the state statutes that municipalities can annex our own land into the city. And then, as I mentioned, that fourth one is the areas of special consideration, because they don't generally have connectivity to the city by way of anything else besides a flagpole annexation. The city, as I mentioned, started with the annexation of enclaves with the adoption of the annexation plan in 2007. Some of the concerns that were driving the city-initiated annexation were property owners outside of the city were relying on city public services to meet their needs, whether that was police or fire safety during emergencies. Many of the enclaves did not have fire protection, only provided wildland fire protection by the county. They weren't being serviced by a specific fire district or a special district that would provide those services. In 2007, when this was going through the adoption process, the police chief at that time stated that they had responded to 180 calls within a 12-month period to properties outside of the city limits, which were primarily the lands identified within those enclaves. So we started the annexation processes, as I mentioned. We completed the annexation of 2 enclaves in 2008. 1 enclave in 2009, there were 7 enclaves completed in 2010, and then there were 2 enclaves that did not meet the statutory requirements. So the map on the right-hand side, it's a little bit hard to see because I wanted to try to show the larger scale of it. The areas in yellow were identified as priority 1, which were for immediate annexation, and then the properties in green were for secondary priority 2-tier annexations, as they didn't meet some of those higher priority needs. And as you can see, a lot of it ranged from, the Security Sanitation District up near Southmore Drive, all the way down to the Magellan gas tanks down here off of South Santa Fe, in addition to several parcels in the middle of the city, right along Fountain Mesa. The last annexation process that the city staff commenced were for enclaves 11 through 14, which are generally located around Jimmy Camp Road in Ohio. This went through the entire annexation process, was approved by City Council on first reading, and then denied on second reading by City Council. So that annexation did not move forward, and those properties were not annexed. So within the land, it was this 1-acre piece, which the school district's gone, but will be coming before this board later in October for consideration. But primarily the land within Enclave Area 13, there's 1 parcel identified as Enclave 11, and then Enclave 12, which is a lot of the vacant land that's along the west side of Link Road. That's our history. And so, Mr. Applegate, I didn't know if there was a specific question on enclave annexations, or if I just kind of want to turn it over to the council for discussion at this time.
Yeah, you said they weren't eligible for it?
Which parcel?
The ones off of Ohio.
So they were eligible. We did go through the entire annexation process. The city council at that time on first reading made a favorable recommendation, made a motion to approve. And then on second reading, they made a motion to deny the annexation. So because of that denial, it did not get annexed.
Right. I was involved in the whole thing. I understand just what went on then and the emotion that went with it. And the thing is, those people live within our city. They use our roads. They know that if anything happens, they need our fire department. If anything else happens, they need our police department. And we scrape the road for them, and we take care of them. And one of them didn't want to be in, and she had a high friend on the council at the time, and that's why the second reading was the negative. But in all that time, nothing's changed. And they still have city services. They still have everything that the city offers anybody that lives within the city. Their argument at the time was, well, it'll cost us more in taxes. But Dave, who was in charge of planning at the time, pointed out to them, yes, but your fire insurance will go down appropriately, and it's a push. It's just going to come out even for you. And that's the only thing that's going to change, is just you actually belong to the city. And I see no reason why they shouldn't be part of the city when they live in the city. It seems an odd situation. So that's why I was kind of wanting that started again. I was on planning at the time. We passed it unanimously to have it done. And then council okayed it. And then the next time around, there was a little politicking, and it went negative.
Any other comments from any other council members? Mr. Rick?
No comments other than if council wants to go forward with this process, I'm okay with that.
That was probably one of the very first council meetings I was at, and it was kind of shocking to try to sit back there and you not really know what's going on and trying to figure it out. I think I remember, and Christy, I think I remember pretty much the council directing that we had spent years on this as a city.
Correct.
And pretty much that if the people who lived in those enclaves wanted to be annexed into the city, that they could pursue it based on the amount of time and expense that the city had already put into it. And then at the last minute, essentially, some people changed their minds. So I feel comfortable with that direction from the previous council of if the citizens want in it, they can spend their money. They can spend their thousands of dollars to pursue it. Councilmember Applegate? Hinton?
So I only have a little bit of history of that. It was before me. But it would make sense, in my opinion, after us exhausting all the resources and means to try to pull that, I believe it's Area 14 into the city, and that doesn't happen. What's the next thing? If we do have residents or citizens that want to be in there, I think it's, we need to hear from them at this point in time, just so that for me personally, feel that, is this something that we need to go moving forward? I understand we provide services and things of that nature to them, because that's the right thing to do. But to incorporate them into the city and fully give everything, I just think for me, I need to hear more from the residents that live in that area.
Councilmember Estes?
I'm going to jump on with Councilmember Hinton. If we had the residents of that area coming in here and say we want to annex in, that would hold a lot more water for me. We just had the debacle up in Monument with the Glen Eagle, and I think that not having the residents here saying, yes, we want to be annexed, I really don't want to do that.
And I've continued to hear from some citizens that were annexed in and didn't really want to be annexed in, and years later, I'm still hearing from them that they bought county property and would have preferred to stay in the county. So I think until we hear from the citizens that they are interested in annexing in, I think we wait.
Okay.
Okay? All right, thank you. Okay. Takes us on to item 9B, proposed change to 2024 strategic, I'm sorry, did you have something to say? You need to turn your microphone on. Do you have something to say?
No, I just disagree.
Well, then turn your microphone on.
I totally disagree. They're in the city, they're part of the city. They're absolutely members of the city, but yet they don't have to pay taxes. They don't have to belong to the city. They don't have to have anything to do with the rest of the people that take care of what they do. The rest of us have to be part of the city and pay that part of the city. They don't. They sit out there and they're in the county and they don't pay anything, and we take care of them.
And I totally agree with you, Councilmember Applegate. Just for me personally, I just like to hear from them, and so that I can have a little bit of history to it. I don't have the history like you have.
I guarantee 3 of them won't want to be in. One of them shoots a gun right in the middle of our city. The other one is got a big place that she wants to not be in.
Yeah.
I don't think the guy in the corner wants to be in.
Yeah.
They're probably not wanting to be in, but it won't affect them one bit. It's just the idea of where you are.
It will affect the council, though. It will affect the council, and we will hear about that, right? And so it will become an issue or a problem or a concern for us now if they join. That's just my opinion if they join. If you got somebody that don't want to be part of the team, you don't want to be part of the team, we can move on.
They're in the city, though.
I get that. But you just told right now that there was 3 or 4 families that you know of that are guaranteed they don't want to be in the city, right? So why would you want to bring somebody in the family or in your house that doesn't want to be in your house?
Right.
And there are people that buy property
That's
in the county
ridiculous.
because they want to be in the county. So I think we have
Well, why don't we all just jump out in the county? Freer, cheaper.
Well, and I'd like to bring up that there's actually little enclaves like this throughout the entire county that are in the middle of Colorado Springs, that are part of the county, that they're not part of Colorado Springs. And it's not a unique thing here. But for me, I get your point, but for me to want to go forward with it and not get the entire community riled up, I would like to hear from those guys that I don't want to get right to the end like we did last time and then it gets voted down.
It didn't get voted down because of that. It got voted down because Mayor Howe had a friend who was owning the big piece of land. That's why it got voted down. She convinced enough people on second reading to not do it.
I get that, but what's the approximate families that live in just 5? Is it just 5?
Well, no, but I think like she said, there's
5 or
little
6.
enclaves all around town.
Okay.
And, you know, and you find out about them every once in a while. You know, my property is half in the city and half in the county.
I got you.
And if I ever want to run water on the upper part of it, I have to bring it into the city if I want water. So, you know, it just is what it is. And,
Whatever.
yep. Okay, well, I think we have a majority that is saying that they're not interested in pursuing it right now. So let's go on to the next item. Item B, proposed change to the 2022-24 strategic plan objective. Mr. Trilch.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm John Trelch, City Administrative Services Director and Strategy Manager. And I'm here before you tonight in partnership with Kimberly Bailey to propose a modification to the 2022 to 2024 strategic plan. As you know, while the strategy conveys a simple, focused, and accountable plan of action to be accomplished over a 3-year period, it is also a living document that can be adjusted as council deems appropriate. Making needed adjustments to the strategy is important in order to account for real-world conditions, unforeseen events, or changes in available resources. These changes keep the plan focused, agile, and it helps maintain momentum in supporting the city's vision and priorities. We also want to ensure that we have continued accountability to the community through a transparent public process to approve such changes, which brings us here this evening. With this in mind, I'll propose a strategic plan objectives change for tonight for your consideration, and then Kimberly is going to provide some specifics regarding the proposed change. We just need City Council's guidance this evening to affect any change to the strategy, which I'll then record and post on the strategic plan webpage on our website, and also will include any changes in future updates to City Council and the public through the end of 2024 when this strategy will be finished. So unless there's any initial questions about the process and what we're doing tonight, I'll jump right into the actual changes. Okay, as a result of a review of the options available to complete strategic objective D13, which you see up there at the top, which is completing an update to the city economic development strategic plan, staff has concluded that that objective cannot be accomplished as directed. Due primarily to continued staff shortages in planning, and you're aware of those challenges we've had there and the work going on, heavy work going on in the planning department. Because of that as well, you know, there's been a postponement in the completion of an updated comprehensive development plan to which the strategic objective D13 depends. And that update was briefed to City Council during the July strategic plan update. So in order to reallocate and most efficiently utilize resources that set conditions and facilitate responsible development, which is one of City Council's 4 strategic priorities, it is recommended that City Council rescind strategic objective D13 and that it be replaced with a new strategic objective, which would be strategic objective D15. That's strategic objective D15 is there on the screen there. I'll just read it to you. It's develop and publish an updated directional signage plan along Highway 8587 Urban Renewal Area Business Corridor. No later than December of 2024, the Economic Development Director will complete a study and publish a plan to update directional signage along the Highway 8587 corridor in order to increase awareness of community points of interest and business corridors in Fountain and improve city infrastructure to meet future community needs. So I will be followed by Kimberly, who will share some more details regarding this new proposed objective.
Thank you, John. Evening, Mayor, Council. Appreciate your time this evening. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as John alluded to, there are 3 prerequisites to us being able to complete D13. That was the 2005 Comprehensive Land Use Plan must be updated. The CEDS, which is the Comprehensive Economic Development Study for the region, is also a foundational basis, which is not completed yet. And then the third one was that more budget appropriations did need to be stewarded to D13 to effectively implement that study. All three of those are unable to be attained by this timeframe, and since we are working on the last tranche of the strategic plan era, which is 2024, we are recommending the wayfinding signage campaign for the US 85 corridor. There are no further budget appropriations being requested. There is no further planning assessments that need to be completed to accomplish this new D15 strategic plan initiative. So we have ourselves an opportunity, and that opportunity is to support small business growth and awareness in the entire 85 corridor. In that corridor, which is the map you see in front of you on the left, it does cover the entire spine of the Fountain Valley City of Fountain jurisdiction, from the north end of Main Street off of Security Widefield corridor, all the way through the Mesa Ridge connectivity into Fort Carson Nexus, and then down into the southern corridor, which we sit today, which is the Old Town and the Gateway corridors. So we see this actually to be a very holistic, business-focused initiative, and the Economic Development Commission is highly advocating for this implementation as well. With that said, there are just 3 areas we'd like to identify that the plan would focus on. The wayfinding tailors a directional and communicative signage along the entire spine area that we've identified in the map. The signage is actually the physical elements of structural signage. That would be additional beyond the scope, but what we would gain within this scope would be the place points and the type of designs being recommended under that holistic program. The third is a branding reference to thematic identity within the business corridors. So North 85, 87, Mesa Ridge, Old Town, and Gateway are distinctive business corridors, and they all need and do garner distinctive branding under the holistic brand, which is right behind you, of Pure Colorado for the City of Fountain. So with that said, we want to make sure that you understand this is just not a creative idea to use appropriations of funding. This is actually something that has been echoed and stewarded as a recommendation in your 2014 Old Town Revitalization Plan, your 2017 Town Design and Aesthetics Guidelines Program, your 2020 Ohio Avenue Placemaking Initiative, and as we are coming to the culmination of the 2023 Old Town, the Blast Site EPA Brownfields Assessment Study Program, these elements of a wayfinding branding campaign have been echoed throughout each of those initiatives. So with that, I am recommending the replacement of D13 with the D15 recommendation, and I'm glad to address any questions you may have.
Kimberly, I think you referred to 5 studies just now that the city has done and participated in before.
You are correct.
And I'm pointing that out because a lot of times people will say the city just spends a lot of money on studies and then they just put them on a shelf and they don't do anything with them. So this is information you're getting directly from studies and analysis that was done. That this is something that our city really needs, is better wayfaring signs to bring people into businesses.
Yes,
Okay.
I concur with that sentiment.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Trilch.
So we just need the consensus of city council and your guidance.
Okay, did you have a question?
I have a question.
Okay, we have a question from Councilman
So
Kenton.
just real quick on the signage, that second bullet there refers to physical placement and types of structure. So when we're thinking about placing these signage, are we placing them high enough where they don't get vandalized, or is that part of that study where that kind of goes in? It would be a shame for us to place these signs, and obviously it can't get damaged, but I want them to last for a long time.
Understand. Good concern of thought. No guarantees of what may transpire with signage that may be implemented at a future course under this recommendation study. However, there are different elevations to the signage.
Yep.
There are different definitions of signage. So you have monument signage, you have kiosk signage, you have directional kind of streetway signage or bike route signage. So signage comes in variations and different elevations of height to the pedestrian or the vehicular view scope. We try our best to implement product that is vandalism resistant, such as in Parks and Rec. When they do wall surface facing or different playground equipment, they come with resin type of applique to those particular things to really just have it wash off or not really being a staining effect. That is still applicable in the signage world.
Thank you, Kimberly. You answered my question better than I gave the question. Thank
I
you.
was going to say, if you start talking signage with Kimberly, that's a whole separate meeting. Councilmember Rick, did you have any questions or comments?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Question for Ms. Bailey. Listening to your presentation, it sounds like we're doing signage for our urban renewal authority areas. Are we doing that, or are we doing signage for the whole city? And the reason I ask this question, if we're just doing signage for urban renewal authority areas, the urban renewal authority has their own dollars and their own budget. So help me understand why they're not doing the signage for this.
Thank you, Councilmember Rick. That is a good question. So our business corridors are very segmented. The Urban Renewal 8587 corridor is the only designated area that does address all of our business corridors. And so this is a equitable approach to make sure that signage is instituted and point of placement for direction to support our holistic business community. That's the best way I can reference that for you. It's only just because we have a designation under the Gateway Master Plan of 2008 that we are referencing the shape file that you see in front of you on the left side. It really does echo a holistic approach to support all businesses wherever they may invest in our community center. Does that address your question?
As long as we're addressing or supporting all of our businesses and not just urban renewal businesses, I'm okay with this.
And that is correct. That is not the perception factor we are relying on in this recommendation.
Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Please come down and state your name for the record, please, and if we could have the 3-minute timer, please.
Good evening, Connie Weisenhunt, business owner of Connie's Cupboard in the Gateway District and business owner of the Book Archive, and I think I'm in the North US 8287 highway. So my question is, are you requiring anything from the businesses in regards to signage, sidewalks, lights, trash receptacles, artworks, plants and different things like that, and especially on the Gateway District, what is our involvement and your approach to bringing all of us in, because this is the first I've heard of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your question. And there was a series of questions, so forgive me if I don't keep up with the thought. First of all, there's nothing requested by the businesses besides your public engagement through the public engagement process. So as each business corridor is quite unique in its own, as it's been separated in this graphic, those businesses in those particular quadrants will be asked to come work with the consultant and generate the feedback and steward the type of elements and or branding design you would like to support your business community around. That's one comment. Some of the elements of recommendation that may be derived through this public engagement may identify a list of things that do allude to the businesses participating in some equity value. And that's more an equity value of participation. So if there are particular planters you want out, or there's a particular look and feel to the product, then there may be additional requests if that business community of that business corridor wishes to implement that caveat. Does that make sense? Okay. Did I miss another question that you had in that list?
No, I think you covered it, but
Just need to be recorded.
sorry. So will we have like a meeting where we're all getting together and we completely understand what your plans and your approaches? We all want to be involved in having the entrance to the city look beautiful and participate in that. So just wondered what your plans were, because it sounds like you want to make it very definitive, done, or tonight on a vote? No?
No, we're just changing the strategic plan to change an objective on it from one to another.
Okay.
So that Kimberly's time, instead of going for one that we can't accomplish, we'll go for one that we actually can accomplish.
Thanks.
Correct, Mayor. Thank you for clarification on that. Yes, we have a limited time of opportunity, and the opportunity is to steward those dollars now under hopefully a recommendation of support voiced by council. So staff can get a RFP issued before the end of this year, select a consultant by the February window, and then steward that deliver by the end of 2024 under the cusp of this strategic plan cycle window. And so there is a limited window of opportunity to make all that fulfillment happen. Through that process, there will be numerous points of public engagement. Economic Development will reach out to its business retention expansion list of point of contacts for businesses and really try to garner and elicit that participation. The plan is only as good as the participation we derive. I must make sure that that is a blanket statement, okay?
And Kimberly, you used an RFP analogy, so can you go ahead and just explain what the RFP means?
Sure thing. RFP is a request for proposals, which is a customary form for municipalities to go out for procuring consultants, bid feedback and cost quotes to award and/or review a cost proposal package.
Okay. All right. So you won't be doing all the work. You'll bring in an outside company to help you with those meetings and gathering all the information and documents and everything with the input from the citizens.
Most definitely, yes.
Okay. All right, Kim, Ms. Sylvia, do you need 2 motions or 1? Do you need 1 to rescind it and 1 to enact the new one, or can we do it all in 1 motion?
Just one motion is fine.
Okay. And Kate, do we have any, Councilmember Hinton, you have another question?
Nope. Ready to
Okay.
make them.
All right, let me go back one. Councilmember Rick, do you have any last things to say before we vote?
No, Madam Mayor, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Hinton?
I want to make a motion. I want to make a motion to approve the new strategic objective D15 and rescind strategic objective D13.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Councilmember Estes?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the new strategic objective D15 and rescind strategic objective D13. All in favor, please vote, and we'll be doing an oral vote with Councilmember Rick.
I apologize. Councilmember Rick, how do you vote?
Yes.
5 yes, motion carried.
All right, thank you very much. All right,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And for the remainder of documentation and tracking of this strategy through the end of '24, D13 will be reflected as rescinded, and then D15 will have a new place and will be reported on and updated through the periodic updates to the City Council and the public.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, that takes us on to item 9C, Resolution 23-038, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fountain, Colorado, authorizing the ordering in 2023 of the new police department vehicles to be delivered in 2024.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. John Lewis, Finance Director for the city. Due to the additional police officers that were hired and to be hired with the 2B ballot funds, we will need to purchase or lease additional police vehicles. In addition, some of the older vehicles are at the end of life and need to be replaced. Chris, if we could go to the next slide, please. And to get the best purchase price for these, we need to order them now in order to receive them in mid-year 2024. The approximate cost will be about $700,000. And if you approve the ordering of these vehicles, we will include it in the 2024 budget. So it'll be one of the revisions that we have to the initial 2024 budget that we showed you last year. It is our current estimate that 6 of the 12 vehicles ordered will be purchased for the additional police officers and therefore be paid with the to-be restricted funds. The remaining 6 vehicles will be replacement of current vehicles and therefore purchased from general fund revenues. Now, as you know, the to-be revenues, when that ballot was approved, it was very specific on what those things can be, what the revenue can be spent for, and those are restricted funds. As you will see in our budget work session coming up in about 3 weeks, we keep that separate. We keep the expenditures segregated. None of it is merged with the general fund unrestricted funds. It's only spent for the purposes that were requested in the ballot initiative. As far as purchasing or leasing, we're going to continue to research that. Right now, lease rates are kind of, are pretty high. We believe we have the funds to go ahead and purchase them, so we may go ahead and purchase those vehicles. We'll determine that in 2024 when we get close to having delivery. And we'll come to you with our recommendation at that time. So this is really just a request for your approval to order the equipment now and to include the purchase in the 2024 proposed budget. And I would request that Thomas Pallara, our fleet manager, come up and add some of his notes. Thomas, if you could, regarding the issues with ordering and delivering right now of the vehicles.
Mayor, Council, we're under a very crucial timeline on the police units. They only open order banks usually once a year. This year we are very fortunate they're going to open a second go around, which is this month. They only open banks for about 30 days. We have to be prepared to do that now, or we will not. We're a whole nother year out for one thing. We're already getting set back, going back to COVID, for being able to get the police units. And if we keep prolonging to a certain degree, we're going to be that much farther out. But the crucial part of getting approved now is because we're down to the time frame of we have to be able to get them ordered, or we're done. We're not. With the police units, we're not in a position where we have 3 or 4 months like your regular units that are out. So that is one thing. We're finding out, I talked to our Ford representative, they are not even going to build any PPVs for 2024. So that cuts one production person completely out of the deal. Basically, it throws us in a whole nother matter of availability again, which is going to extend us out or limit to being able to get them even farther out, just like it has with COVID. So it's very, very important to make this decision.
There was something else recently we had to order ahead of the budget.
Dump truck, Public Works.
Yeah, because same situation. Yeah, okay.
Because we also have to realize that, these, just like the dump trucks and stuff, basically are specialized vehicles. So it's not a matter of just getting the unit, then it has to go for the upfit or whatever to get all the cage and the lighting and everything. So that puts us even, more weeks out. It's just a matter of not taking delivery of just the.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to explain it because, the average person's going to look at, you're purchasing 6 vehicles at $700,000. Can you explain a little bit? Isn't that what it says?
It's 12.
12 vehicles.
It's 12.
Thank you, 6 of them out of one. Okay, so,
Yeah,
thank you. It's
6
okay.
with 2B and
Thank you, 6
with
was 2, thank
unrestricted
you,
funds.
okay. All right, make
Now
a
these-
mistake and make it public, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so 12 vehicles for $700,000, okay.
Yeah,
But
and
that
the-
includes all the extra stuff that goes with these police vehicles?
Correct.
The cages, the whatever, are we doing the special bumpers
The
on some
upfit,
of? Yeah.
what they call the total upfit, that price is included in there. we got as close as we could per the GM rep and my upfitters. We should be right in the ballpark, because we don't have exact pricing on the units yet, but basically I went in and I marked everything up 10%. Usually we see a possibly 3 to 5% increase, so we should be hopefully on the high side, but we should be right in there as far as the price wise. Now these units too are not just additional units. We will be rolling units out that these will be replacing, so we're not just adding 12 brand new units.
We're adding 6.
Basically adding 6.
And then the other 6, we
Or replacing.
sell
Yeah.
6? Okay.
They do a trade-in on the leases. Well, those aren't leased, are they?
No.
Yeah, these cars, no.
Yeah, the police, yeah,
so high mileage that they'll get back very little.
right,
They're very high mileage.
right, okay. All right,
So with that, I'd like to ask if there are any other questions, and if not, we would request that council approve the resolution so that we can go ahead and order these vehicles.
okay. Did you have a question, Councilmember Applegate?
Yeah, I had a question. When you have does each officer have their own car so that different shifts, like if you have a shift of 5 people, they need 5 cars,
That's a good
but
question.
they have to have their own?
No, sir. Right now, we have kind of a combination of both. Car sharing is what we do for the average officer that doesn't have any extra duties that would require them to have a take-home car. They car share. So I don't know how many officers currently car share, but I'd say we have at least 12 to 15 officers that car share. So that car is driven for half the week by one officer and the other half the week by the other officer. Those officers that have take-home cars are ones that are on call. Either the SWAT team or the detectives or any unit that's on call would have their own car to take home. Other than that, and of course our SROs, as kind of a benefit to them, they have a take-home car.
Okay. All right, I understand. I was just wondering, most of our cars were bought after the hailstorm of 18.
Well,
They were all destroyed then.
yeah, and I'll probably get corrected here by Lieutenant McGee, but we actually didn't. That's part of the issue here is we got way behind the curve during the hailstorm. We could not buy cars either for financial reasons or we did a lot of repairs. A lot of cars that could have been totaled, we chose to continue to drive and do the repairs that would make them look presentable. And we actually didn't replace a lot of those cars. Just a very small amount got replaced that were totally unsalvageable.
Okay. Yeah, I understand the replacements. You haven't hired any new people above what you were scheduled for before we passed the extra 6.
No, sir. No, in fact, we haven't even I'm trying to catch up to get fully staffed right now, so we're still in the process of hiring our first 3 officers for the 2B. But I think our problem is, if I get these vehicles by mid-24, I'd be super happy. My guess is they probably aren't going to get here till the end of 24, and I just don't want to put us in a bind.
Okay. So basically, we're buying 12 for what you got right now.
Yeah, we're going to be kicking out. At least 3 cars right now have over 160,000 miles on them. One of my commanders is driving a 2012 Chevy Impala with I don't know how many miles on it. And Tom can attest to the maintenance that it costs to have those cars. And again, we didn't buy any cars in 2023. This is our first car purchase since 2021, where we only got 4 during that year. So we're a little behind the curve as far as car goes right now.
I get it. Okay. It's just kind of shocking, 700,000 when our roadway only has 600,000 for the whole year.
I wouldn't
That seems kinda,
I wouldn't disagree with that, sir.
That's just the way we work it here, and it doesn't seem to be balanced out too well.
Councilmember
That's all.
Estes?
And I just want to go over the fact that the 2B funds, they can only be used for the 2B, what was voted on in the ballot, and they are not commingled in with the general fund.
That is correct. And we treat them as separate restricted funds and account for the revenue and the expenditures separately. And no one's seen that yet because,
It's
you
new.
know, we do have the expenditures approved, and we indicated once those expenditures are made, that we'll have a certain amount left in the fund balance. But we'll see that in the 2024 budget. We'll see how it's segregated.
Well, I just
And of course,
wanted to
the financial
emphasize that-
statements next year will also segregate those funds, and we'll have to report to the auditors the separate expenditures that were applied to those revenues.
Well, I just want to point out that those 2B funds, they are restricted. They cannot be used for items in the general fund. Thank
That's
you.
correct.
Before I take it out to the audience, see if they have any questions or comments. Councilmember Rick, do you have anything?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from anybody in the audience? All right, seeing none and no further questions from council, what would council like to do? Councilmember Estes?
I move to approve resolution number 23-038.
Okay, we have a motion. Councilmember Hinton?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Councilmember Rick, how do you vote?
Yes.
5 yes, motion carried.
Thank you,
All right,
Mayor and
thank you very
Council.
much. I hope they come in on time. All right. If I remember right, last time we got new cars, didn't one of our less than savory citizens total one of them out in like the first week or something? Yeah, okay. All righty. Hopefully that won't happen this time, huh? All right. That takes us to item 10, City Council Agenda Request. City Council shall use this time to request any items for future consideration. Councilmember Rick.
Nothing tonight, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Hinton.
Nothing tonight, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Estes.
Nothing this evening?
Councilmember Applegate.
Nothing.
And I have nothing. That takes us, item 11, announcement of executive sessions. In accordance with the city charter and the Colorado Open Meetings Act, the city council in open session is to determine whether it will hold a closed executive session. A closed executive session may be held upon an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the quorum present. If consent to the closed executive session is not given, the items may be discussed in open session or withdrawn from consideration. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. I'd like to request an executive session pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-424 for the purpose review, approval, and amendment of executive session minutes, and pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-424E for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, development strategy for negotiations, and/or instructing negotiators. And finally, an executive session pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-424B for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions.
Okay, that is a request from the clerk. What would council like to do? Councilmember Hinton?
I make a motion to move into executive session.
Okay, Councilmember Estes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for executive session. Please vote.
Councilmember Rick, how do you vote?
Yes.
5 yes, motion carried.
All right, so I am adjourning the formal part of the meeting for the council for September 12th, 2023. Thank you very much. And we'll take a 5-minute comfort break, and then we'll come back and get her done.